The crystalline spires of the research facility gleamed under the binary star's light, casting prismatic shadows across the moon's icy surface. Raven Blackwood adjusted her thermal suit's settings as she crouched behind a ridge of frozen methane, her breath creating small clouds inside her helmet. After 3 years of tracking mysterious energy signatures across the outer rim, she finally found what she was looking for: proof of the enigmatic Nexus Corporation's illegal research operations. Through her enhanced binoculars, she watched the facility's security drones make their routine passes. Their paths were predictable, a sign of artificial intelligence lacking human creativity. That would be their weakness. As an archaeologist specialized in extinct civilizations, Raven had learned that the most dangerous predators were often the most systematic. Her wrist computer chirped softly, indicating another energy spike from within the facility. This one was different from the regular power signatures. It carried traces of biological components. Living beings were inside, and based on the readings, they weren't all from known species. Raven's mission had originally been simple: document evidence of Nexus Corp's violation of the Galactic Heritage Protection Act. The company had been plundering archaeological sites across 3 sectors, stealing artifacts and destroying invaluable historical records in the process. But these energy readings suggested something far more sinister. As night fell on this airless world, Raven made her way closer to the facility's perimeter. The security field hummed quietly, invisible but deadly. She pulled out her scanner, searching for fluctuations in the energy matrix. Every field had its weak points. She just needed to find one large enough to slip through. That's when she saw her. Through one of the facility's transparent walls, a figure floated in a containment chamber. The being's body appeared to be made of living crystal, refracting light in impossible patterns. It was humanoid in shape, but clearly alien, and clearly in pain. The crystal structure pulsed with distress, sending out waves of bioluminescence that matched the energy spikes Raven had detected. "What are they doing to you?" Raven whispered, recording everything with her suit's cameras. The crystalline being suddenly turned its head, looking directly at her through the walls. Raven froze. It was impossible. She was too far away to be seen, and her suit's stealth systems were active. Yet somehow, the creature had sensed her presence. A voice touched Raven's mind, not in words but in feelings and colors. Pain, fear, hope. The contact lasted only seconds before the being convulsed in apparent agony, its crystal structure flickering dangerously. Raven's hands clenched into fists. Her mission parameters had just changed. Documentation wasn't enough. She couldn't walk away knowing what was happening here. The being's mental touch had left her with more than just emotions. Somehow, it had shared knowledge. Its name was Zara, and she was the last of her kind. The Nexus scientists were trying to unlock the secrets of her crystalline biology, believing it held the key to unlimited energy production. Through the facility's windows, Raven could see white-coated figures moving around Zara's chamber, adjusting controls and taking readings. Their casual indifference to their subjects' suffering made Raven's blood boil. She had seen this before, the same clinical detachment that had led to the destruction of countless historical sites, all in the name of progress. As she retreated to her hidden base camp, Raven began planning. She had come prepared for covert observation, not a rescue mission. Her ship was small, designed for stealth rather than combat, and she had limited weapons. But she also had something the Nexus Corporation didn't expect: a lifetime of studying how ancient civilizations had overcome supposedly superior forces. That night, as the binary stars set and plunged the moon into darkness, Raven prepared herself. She would need every trick she'd learned from the ancient warriors whose temples she'd explored, every piece of technology she'd salvaged from forgotten worlds. Tomorrow, she would become either a rescuer or a cautionary tale in someone else's archaeological discovery. She looked up at the facility, its crystalline spires now dark against the star-filled sky. "Hold on, Zara," she whispered. "I'm coming." The facility's inner sanctum smelled of antiseptic and fear. Raven moved silently through the shadows, her stealth suit adapting to match the sterile white walls. She had breached the outer perimeter by exploiting a weakness in their power grid, a technique learned from studying the defensive systems of an ancient fortress on Kepler 186. The security cameras tracked empty corridors while she slipped past, their algorithms unable to detect her suit's adaptive camouflage. But avoiding detection wasn't enough. She needed to find the central research lab where they kept Zara. The crystalline being's mental signature pulsed weakly in her mind, a lighthouse in this maze of clinical efficiency. Through observation windows, Raven witnessed horrors that made her jaw clench. Other specimens, some humanoid, others defying description, underwent various procedures. The Nexus Corporation's scientists moved between chambers with cold precision, documenting their subjects' responses to stimuli that made Raven's stomach turn. Research Lab Delta. Redesign ahead. The mental pulses grew stronger. This was it. Raven accessed a terminal, her hacking tools making quick work of the security protocols. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, Zara floated in her containment field, her crystalline form dulled with exhaustion. 3 scientists worked at control stations, monitoring readouts from devices attached to their subject's translucent body. Energy crackled through the crystals, forcing them to resonate at unnatural frequencies. "Increasing power to Sector 7, announced one scientist. "Let's see if we can trigger another energy cascade." Zara's silent scream echoed in Raven's mind as the crystals began to fracture. The pain was unbearable, transforming the beautiful patterns into jagged shards of agony. Without thinking, Raven stepped out of the shadows. "Stop the experiment. Now." The scientists turned, startled by her sudden appearance. One reached for an alarm panel, but Raven's neural disruptor was faster. They collapsed, unconscious before they hit the floor. Raven rushed to the control station, her fingers flying over the interface as she tried to deactivate the containment field. "I'm getting you out of here," she said aloud, knowing Zara could sense her intentions. The crystalline being's consciousness brushed against hers, weak but grateful. Warning klaxons began to blare. Someone had noticed the power fluctuations, or the scientist's vital signs dropping offline. It didn't matter. Raven had known this wouldn't stay quiet for long. The containment field flickered and died. Zara collapsed into Raven's arms, surprisingly light despite her mineral composition. Up close, the damage was even more apparent. Stress fractures ran through her crystal matrix like spider webs, and several smaller fragments had broken off entirely. "Can you move?" Raven asked, supporting the alien's weight. In response, Zara's form shifted, the crystals realigning themselves into a more compact configuration. She managed to stand, though Raven could sense the effort it took. Heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor. Security was coming. Raven pulled out her last resort, a quantum scrambler designed to disrupt electronic systems. It would buy them time, but using it would alert the entire facility to their location. "Together," she asked Zara, finger hovering over the activation switch. The crystalline being's response was immediate. A surge of determination that mixed with Raven's own. She triggered the scrambler. Every electronic device within 50 meters went haywire. Lights flickered, doors slammed randomly, and security systems reset themselves in endless loops. In the chaos, Raven and Zara ran. They had made it halfway to the emergency exit when the first security team caught up. Energy weapons discharged, their beams reflecting off Zara's crystalline surface in unpredictable patterns. Raven pushed her against the wall, returning fire with her own weapon. "We need another way out," she muttered, checking her tactical display. Most routes were blocked by security teams, but there was one possibility. If they could reach the research wing's chemical storage area, they might be able to create a diversion. Zara touched her arm, sharing a vision. The facility's power core connected to nodes throughout the building. Nodes that drew energy from her people's crystalline matrix. Nodes that could be overloaded. Raven understood. It was risky. Catastrophic, even. But right now, catastrophic was exactly what they needed. "Show me how," she said. As security forces closed in from both directions, Raven and Zara prepared to turn the facility's own research against it. The real breakout was about to begin. The power core thrummed beneath them, a heart of contained plasma and crystalline technology. Raven and Zara had fought their way down through maintenance shafts and emergency corridors, leaving chaos in their wake. Now they stood before the massive reactor that powered the entire facility and held the key to their escape. Zara's crystals pulsed with renewed energy as she approached the core. The scientists had built their power system by reverse engineering her people's technology, creating an imperfect copy that was both powerful and unstable. Through their mental link, she showed Raven the flaw in their design. They hadn't understood the resonance patterns that made crystalline energy transmission safe. Security forces were sealing off every level above them. They had minutes, maybe less. Raven worked quickly, rerouting power conduits, while Zara began to sync her crystal matrix with the core's frequency. The plan was dangerous. They would use Zara's natural abilities to trigger a cascade failure, but had to time their escape perfectly to avoid being caught in the collapse. Intruders identified in core sector. The facility's A blared, initiating containment protocols. Blast doors began closing around them. Raven shot the nearest control panel, jamming the mechanism. How much longer? Zara's response came in pulses of light and emotion, almost ready. Her crystalline form had begun to glow with an intense inner light, matching the core's resonance, but subtly altering it. The power readings on nearby monitors spiked erratically. The first explosion rocked the facility as Zara's interference caused a feedback loop in one of the secondary nodes. Alarms screamed as emergency systems tried to compensate, but it was too late. The cascade had begun. Time to go. Raven grabbed Zara's arm, pulling her toward their escape route. The crystalline being moved with new strength, her matrix energized by the power she'd absorbed. They ran through corridors that were quickly becoming death traps as overloaded systems exploded around them. A security team appeared ahead, weapons raised. Before they could fire, Zara raised her hands. The crystal fixtures in the ceiling shattered, raining sharp fragments that forced their opponents to take cover. Raven was learning that her new ally had more abilities than the scientists had ever discovered. They reached the maintenance elevator shaft that would lead them to the surface. The car was locked down, but Raven had planned for this. She attached a magnetic grapple to the shaft wall. "Hold on to me." Zara wrapped her crystalline arms around Raven as the grapple pulled them upward at high speed. Below them, the power core's containment systems were failing catastrophically. They could feel the heat rising, chasing them up the shaft. 3 levels from the surface, the shaft's emergency barriers activated. Raven swung them toward a maintenance hatch, kicking it open as Zara used her powers to shatter the barriers above them. They crawled through cramped utility spaces as the facility began to tear itself apart. Almost there, Raven gasped. Her stealth suit was damaged, environmental controls failing as they pushed through the final obstacles. Zara's light illuminated their way, her crystal matrix humming with absorbed energy. They burst onto the moon's surface just as the ground began to shake. The facility's beautiful crystal spires were collapsing, sinking into the crater that was forming as the power core destabilized. Raven's ship waited where she'd hidden it, behind a ridge of ice. Run. They sprinted across the frozen ground as the facility imploded behind them. The vacuum of space carried no sound, but they could feel the shockwaves through their feet. Raven's ship powered up as they approached, responding to her remote signal. Inside the cockpit, they strapped in as Raven initiated emergency launch procedures. Through the view screen, they watched the Nexus Corporation's pride and joy disappear into a sinkhole of its own making. Evidence of their crimes erased, but not forgotten. As they broke orbit, Zara touched Raven's mind one last time. But this contact was different. Not just emotions and images, but actual words formed from their shared experiences. Thank you, friend. Raven smiled, setting a course for deep space. We're not done yet. There are other facilities, other victims. And now there are two of us. Behind them, the binary stars rose over the moon's horizon, illuminating the wreckage of a place where science had lost its way. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and the promise of more rescues to come. Neither of them would have it any other way. Space offered no true safety. 3 days after their escape, Raven's ship detected the first pursuit vessels. The Nexus Corporation had deployed their elite recovery team, ships specifically designed to track and capture beings with crystalline biology. They're following your energy signature, Raven explained, studying the tactical display. Zara stood behind her, her crystal form dimmed to minimal output. Through their strengthening mental link, she shared her knowledge of the hunters. They'd been used before to capture others of her kind. The chase led them through an asteroid field in the Carina sector. Raven's smaller ship had the advantage in maneuverability, but their pursuers had better weapons and shields. Each close pass left them more vulnerable, their resources dwindling. We need to dock for repairs, Raven announced after a particularly close shot scorched their port side. I know a place, an old mining station. The owner owes me a favor from an archaeological expedition. The station appeared abandoned when they approached, a relic of the belt's depleted uranium rush, but Raven knew better. Hidden sensors scanned their ship, and a docking bay door silently opened. Inside, they found not sanctuary, but betrayal. The station's owner, Jensen, had sold them out. Nexus Corporation troops waited with restraint fields active. Sorry, Raven, Jensen shrugged. They offered too much to refuse. But Zara had grown stronger since their escape. As the restraint fields activated, her crystal matrix suddenly pulsed with stored energy from the facility's core. The electromagnetic burst disabled every piece of technology in the bay, including the troops' weapons and armor systems. Raven moved fast, her archaeological training proving unexpectedly useful in close combat. While Zara blocked reinforcements by crystallizing doorways, Raven neutralized the surprised troops with precise strikes to vulnerable points in their powered-down armor. Jensen tried to run, but found himself encased to the neck in rapidly growing crystal. Wait, I can help, he pleaded. I know why they want her so badly. Talk, Raven commanded, keeping one eye on the sealed doors. The truth was worse than they'd imagined. Zara's people hadn't been randomly targeted. They were part of a larger experiment. The Nexus Corporation had discovered ancient records suggesting crystalline beings could access dimensional spaces beyond normal space-time. They believed this could revolutionize space travel, communication, even warfare. "They'll never stop hunting her," Jensen said. "She's the last one whose crystal matrix is pure enough to potentially access these dimensions." Raven looked at her companion. Zara's form pulsed with anger and determination. Through their link, they shared the same thought. It was time to stop running. Using Jensen's security codes, they accessed the station's communication array. While Nexus forces converged on their location, Raven broadcast everything. The experiments, the humanitarian violations, the true purpose behind it all, to every major news network in the sector. "Let them come," Raven said, watching the tactical display fill with incoming ships. "The whole galaxy is watching now." Zara's response came in both thoughts and crystals as she began transforming the station's interior. They would make their stand here, where running and hiding became fighting back. The hunters were about to learn why their prey had survived when all others have fallen. Around them, the station's metal walls bloomed with crystal formations, turning their battleground into a maze of refracted light and deadly sharp edges. Through their mental link, Raven felt Zara's growing confidence. Together, they had something worth fighting for, not just survival, but justice. The first explosion against the station's outer hull announced the beginning of the assault. Raven checked her weapons, while Zara strengthened their crystalline fortifications. In the chaos to come, they would need every advantage. "Ready?" Raven asked, though she already knew the answer. Zara's crystals pulsed with battle light, turning the docking bay into a kaleidoscope of deadly beauty. The hunters were coming, but this time, the hunted were prepared. This forgotten mining station would become either their last stand or the beginning of something much bigger. A revolution against those who saw other species as merely resources to be exploited. Through their mental link, Zara shared a vision of her homeworld before its destruction. Not for grief now, but for strength. What they did here would echo across the galaxy, a crystal-clear message: never again. The final battle transformed the mining station into a crystalline fortress. Nexus Corporation forces breached the outer defenses, only to find themselves in a labyrinth where every surface could become a weapon. Zara's powers had evolved beyond anything the scientists had documented. She could now reshape entire sections of the station instantly, trapping or redirecting enemy squads at will. Raven coordinated their defense from a makeshift command center, using the station's old systems merged with Zara's crystal technology. Through their mental link, they moved in perfect synchronization. When one section was compromised, Zara would crystallize new barriers, while Raven deployed countermeasures she'd salvaged from ancient defense systems. But the Nexus forces kept coming. Their desperation to recapture Zara made them reckless, willing to sacrifice troops and resources in waves. Each assault brought them closer to the central chamber where Raven and Zara had made their stand. Then something unexpected happened. As Zara deflected another wave of attackers, her crystals began resonating at a frequency Raven had never seen before. The space around them seemed to ripple, like heat waves over desert sand. They were right, Raven whispered, watching reality blur at the edges. You can access other dimensions. Through their link, Zara shared her revelation. Her people hadn't been born with this ability. It had evolved as a defense mechanism, a way to escape extinction. The stress of battle had finally awakened it within her. The station's walls became transparent, then translucent, showing glimpses of other realities. peaceful worlds where crystalline beings still thrived. But they couldn't escape alone. The evidence of Nexus Corporation's crimes had to reach the galaxy, and other victims of their experiments deserved justice. Making a final decision, Zara began to pulse with intense energy. She wasn't just accessing other dimensions, she was bringing them into this one. The laws of physics began to break down around them as multiple realities overlapped. Nexus forces pulled back in terror as their weapons malfunctioned and their very atoms threatened to reorganize themselves. Through the station's still active broadcasts, the galaxy witnessed something beyond scientific understanding. Raven felt Zara's plan through their connection, not an escape, but a transformation. The station was becoming a nexus point between dimensions, a place where the barriers between realities had become permanently thin. Any attempt to capture or control this power would be impossible. Together, Raven asked one final time, extending her hand. Zara's response came in both thought and crystal. Always. The transformation completed in a burst of multidimensional energy. Where the mining station had been, a new structure hung in space. A crystalline observatory existing in multiple realities simultaneously. The Nexus Corporation's forces retreated, their ships unable to maintain structural integrity in the dimensional flux. In the aftermath, as authorities from a dozen systems converged on the scene, Raven and Zara began their real work. The observatory became a sanctuary for rescued experimental subjects and a center for peaceful research into dimensional physics. More importantly, it stood as a beacon of hope, proof that different species could work together to overcome even the most powerful adversaries. Years later, visitors to the Crystal Observatory would sometimes catch glimpses of other realities through its shifting walls. And if they were lucky, they might see two figures walking its impossible corridors, a human archaeologist and a crystalline being, whose friendship had changed the course of galactic history. In the end, it wasn't just about escaping captivity or exposing corruption. It was about proving that the strongest bonds in any universe are forged not in laboratories, but in the heart of revolution, where unlikely allies become family, and survival becomes transformation.